I learned the hard way that love doesn't always equal loyalty. My name's Tyler. I'm 32, living in Decatur, Georgia. After my mom passed from ovarian cancer when I was 7, stage 4 before they even caught it, it was just me and my dad. He ran a small truck repair shop off Candler Road, working double shifts, but still packing my lunch every morning. He'd drag himself home covered in grease, dead tired, yet still asked how my day went. He didn't know how to quit. I wasn't loud as a kid. I kept my head down, did my work, and stayed out of trouble. School wasn't easy, but I managed. Dating wasn't on my mind. After losing my mom, I figured love always came with an expiration date. Long-term never felt possible for me. I didn't go to college after high school, couldn't afford it, didn't want to. Instead, I got into freight logistics, started on the phones, took on the jobs no one else wanted, and proved myself. By 30, I was operations manager at a brokerage in Atlanta. I made decent money, and finally moved out of the one-bedroom I'd rented for years. That's when it all began. We had a logistics conference downtown, corporate fluff, nothing exciting. Afterward, a few coworkers dragged me to a bar near Centennial Park. I planned on one beer, then heading home. That's when I noticed her, Natalie, sitting at the bar, laptop open, bourbon neat in front of her. No makeup, just a navy blazer, dark jeans, and boots that said she didn't take nonsense from anyone. She looked grounded, like she knew exactly who she was, and didn't care what people thought. One of my coworkers cracked a dumb joke about consultants drinking alone. She smiled, closed her laptop, and joined us like she'd known us for years. I didn't think I stood a chance, but the crazy part, she kept showing up. She'd swing by the office with coffee, text dumb memes. Nothing pushy, just present. At first, it felt strange, but soon I looked forward to it. For the first time, I started to believe maybe love could actually last. We eased into it. Burgers after work at Holman and Finch, weekend hikes at Sweetwater Creek, movie nights tangled under one blanket on her small sectional. She liked whiskey, hated olives, and always fell asleep halfway through the movie. I eventually brought an overnight bag without even thinking about it. Still, I figured it wouldn't last. Natalie came from Buckhead money. An old brick house, a maid, gold foil Christmas cards, private schools, tennis camps. Her dad ran a finance firm for high net worth clients. Her mom wore pearls like it was still the 60s. The first time I visited, I showed up in boots and flannel. Her mom's face said I dragged in a wild animal. But Natalie stood beside me, hand on my arm, and said, "This is Tyler. He builds things." She never once made me feel less than. "Your world's fancy," I told her. "And yours is honest," she said back. "I'll take honest." I should have thought more about that. We kept going. She worked long hours in IT consulting, often traveling or on late-night calls with teams in London or Dubai. I managed dispatch schedules and drivers who couldn't read time zones. Most nights we'd meet back at her place, throw in a frozen pizza, and pass out mid-show. It felt real. 14 months in, I had a toothbrush in her bathroom, and half my clothes in her closet. One night, I came home to her cooking zucchini, wine in hand, hair tied back with one of my old bandanas. "Let's do this," she said. "Do what?" I asked. "This," she pointed between us. "Let's get married." I blinked. "You stir serious?" "Dead serious." "We sit are already doing the hard part. Why wait?" She didn't want a diamond or a big proposal, just wanted to build something together. I said yes. Scared, sure, but I meant it. The next day, I told my dad over leftover barbecue at the shop. He sat back, looked me in the eye, and teared up. "You're the last of our line," he said. "She better be worth it." The words stuck with me. He offered money for a ring or venue, but I told him no. All I wanted was a roof, a garage, maybe a yard, something simple, something ours. We started hunting fixer-uppers in East Atlanta, houses with sagging porches and broken gutters. She said she didn't mind rolling up her sleeves. I believed her. Then came dinner with her parents. She called it casual. Nothing heavy. I knew better. Their Buckhead house sat behind iron gates and boxwood hedges. White columns, black shutters, circular brick driveway, stone fountain. It screamed money. I wore my best gray button-up, clean jeans, polished boots. Brought a small batch bourbon from a Covington distillery, thoughtful, southern, not cheap. Helen opened the door with a frozen smile, scanning me like I didn't belong. She didn't take the bottle, just stepped aside. Shoes off, please. That second ORT. Thent D. E. Goff. Natalie sat on the couch with white wine in hand, at home like she never left. Richard didn't stand when I entered. No handshake, just nodded at the sitting room. Let's talk, he said. I sat on the edge of a cream couch that probably cost more than my truck. Helen perched across with a plate of olives. Richard leaned forward, elbows on his knees. So Tyler, he began. No college, right? Went straight to work after high school, I answered. Richard grunted. And what exactly do you do? I manage freight operations at a brokerage in Atlanta. Oversee drivers, build lanes, track KPIs. So, trucks? Helen cut in. You work with trucks? I nodded. Yes, Mastam. Logistics. Richard tilted his head. Your father still rents, doesn't he? I clenched my jaw. He does. Been leasing that shopland for 30 years. No investments? Helen asked. No portfolio. I've got a 401k and a Roth IRA, I said. Started saving early. She blinked like I said something strange, then turned to Natalie. You do understand, Natalie? You stir our only daughter. You are our investment. That word stuck with me. Investment. Like she was a business. Like I was a gamble. I looked at Natalie, waiting for her to push back. Anything. A smile, a shake of the head. A mom. Stop. Nothing. She just swirled her wine and looked down, like she'd seen this all before. Richard leaned back. This marriage, if it happens, will change the course of your life. Are you ready for that responsibility? I stared at him. I didn't set no. Love came with a ledger. He didn't set smile, just stared. Helen finally picked up the bourbon bottle, turned it in her hands like it was poison. We drink scotch, but thank you. Natalie stood, smoothed her dress. Dinner's ready, she said. Nobody moved until Helen sighed and led us to the dining room. Natalie brushed past me, eyes down. I followed like I was being sent to the principal's office. Dinner was steak, asparagus, and a salad that tasted like lemon water. No one said much. Richard asked if I'd considered night school. Helen just kept glancing at my hands, scarred, calloused from years in the shop. Natalie barely spoke. On the way out, Richard said, "We'll be in touch," like it was a business deal. Helen didn't even walk us to the door. In the car, I waited for Natalie to say something. She just buckled up and turned on the radio. Back at her condo, we didn't speak for 10 minutes. She poured a glass of wine and sat like nothing had happened. I stood there with my keys in hand. They basically told me, I'm not good enough, I said. She didn't look up. They scepter just old-fashioned. Old-fashioned, I laughed once. They interrogated me like I was applying for a loan. They don't know you yet. I stepped around the counter. You heard your mom. You stepped their investment. That sips how they see you. And me? I stepped a what? Risk. She exhaled slowly. They said you're not used to people like you. For the first time, I felt her siding with them instead of me. People like me, I repeated. Working class. Blue collar. No inheritance. No country club tie. She stayed quiet, sipping her wine. That silence said enough. Planning the wedding became a full-time job, and not for us. Helen took over the guest list, hired her event planner, and booked a black tie venue without asking. She called rustic weddings, cute for Instagram, but not proper for Natalie's standing. She picked a caterer who charged per garnish. She even sent me a passive-aggressive email after seeing a photo of my dad at the engagement brunch. Maybe your father could invest in formal wear. Natalie brushed it off. It's just her tone. Don't make it a big deal. Every time I brought it up, she'd say, they'll come around. It's not worth the drama. Just let it go. Always like I was the one causing problems. I kept waiting for her to defend me, but she never did. One night, I was under the truck with my dad, fixing the fuel line, grease in my hair, busted knuckles, radio low. He handed me a rag and sat on a crate. She seems smart, he said. Polite, too. I waited. But something feels off. That house, that whole setup, it doesn't fit you. I kept wiping my hands. He leaned back. You sure she sits marrying you, or just escaping them? There sets a difference. One sits love. The other sets convenience. I tightened the last bolt and rolled out. I don't sit no, I said. Maybe both. He didn't push, just handed me a beer. We sat in silence, the kind that says more than words. That was the first time I wondered if I'd gotten in too deep. The next night was the rehearsal dinner. Helen and Richard's country club, of course. Stone pillars, valet, live jazz, like we were hosting the governor. I pulled in behind my dad. He stepped out in his best slacks, tucked polo, clean loafers, fresh shave. Looked good, solid. Helen spotted him across the room and gave him a look like he was something stuck to her shoe. Her eyes went up and down, lingering on the polo as if it had stains. Thanks for coming, she said flatly. My dad nodded. Nice place. Smells like new carpet. She turned without another word. Natalie arrived 10 minutes late, in a fitted black dress and heels that clicked across the floor. She kissed my cheek. Ready for the circus? She asked. You mean dinner? I said. She just laughed. We sat at a long banquet table under a chandelier that probably cost more than my dad's truck. The waiters brought out duck confit like that was normal food. Everyone smiled too much. Conversations felt stiff, unless it was about hedge funds or wine pairings. My dad tried to talk cars with Richard. You ever work on a SEP-70s Mustang? My dad asked Richard. They SEP'd are tough, but Richard cut him off. I lease mine. Not really into tools. Half an hour later, during the toasts, Richard stood with champagne in hand, and that practiced politician's smile. We stir thrilled. Natalie found someone she connects with, he said. It stirs always encouraging to see upward mobility through marriage. Polite laughter, nervous. My stomach dropped. I looked at Natalie, silently begging her to speak up, to push back, to say anything. She just clinked her glass and smiled, unfazed. After dessert, I pulled her outside into the parking lot. The air was cold, my chest burning. A Zetman thinking about backing out, I said. She froze. Excuse me? I wakeum serious. Your dad just told a room full of people that I wakeum's basically a career move. He didn't mean it like that. Yes, he did. She crossed her arms. It sets just one night, Tyler. Don't overreact. I stared. So that SIP's the answer every time. Let it go. She didn't respond, just walked toward her car. I stood there, then headed to mine. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay on my childhood bed, ceiling fans spinning uneven circles. Around 5:30, my dad walked in with 2 mugs of coffee, burnt, black, same as always. He sat at the edge of the bed, looked me in the eye. You don't have to do this, he said. Not for her, not for them, I replied. He gripped my shoulder. You stir enough, kid. Always have been. That landed harder than anything else. I nodded, finished the coffee, and knew something inside me had already shifted. The wedding day hit like a freight train. Historic midtown venue, tall windows, exposed brick, overpriced flowers in every corner, perfect rows of white chairs, aisle runners smoother than the carpet in my first apartment. Everything flawless. Everything fake. I stood at the altar in a rented tux, watching guests file in, heels clicking, cameras flashing. It felt like I was floating, watching someone else live my life. Natalie came down the aisle like she was on a runway, flawless, composed, cold. I said the vows, kissed the bride, smiled for photos. My gut screamed the whole time. The reception was in the ballroom, crystal chandeliers, string quartet, cocktails lined with labels I couldn't pronounce. Natalie disappeared into her circle, laughing at whatever Helen whispered. My dad stood near the back, quiet, watching me like he knew something was about to snap. By the toasts, wine was flowing. Helen had already drained 3 glasses. Richard laughed too loud at his own jokes. Then the DJ handed Helen the mic. She tapped it twice, grinned, and slurred. Let's be honest, Natalie could have married a senator or a surgeon, but she chose Tyler. Laughter, gasps. My jaw clenched. She better get a prenup, Helen went on. If you stir marrying a man with 4 wrenches and a rusty truck, at least make sure he signs over his paycheck. Gasps spread through the room. One guest laughed. My heart pounded. I looked at Natalie. She didn't flinch, didn't defend me, didn't say a word. Then Richard stood. Ms. F asked us before buying that cheap tux, he said, raising his glass. We could Seth pointed you to a tailor. My chair scraped as I stood, but my dad beat me to it. He walked up slow, steady, and took the mic from Helen like it was trash. He looked around, then locked eyes with them. You two disgust me, he said. Loud enough for everyone. Your daughter Sip's marrying a man who worked for everything he has, who never asked for a handout, who fixes what Sip's broken instead of walking away. That Sip's more than either of you can say. He turned to Richard. Your boss Tom Whitaker grew up like me. Small house, single mom. Grease under his nails. Wonder how he sept'd feel if he heard you tonight. The room froze. Richard's face went pale. Helen stepped back, stunned. I glanced at Natalie. She stood frozen, bouquet in hand, eyes glassy, no apology, no defense, just empty. Silence stretched. My dad handed me the mic. I stepped forward. Thanks for coming, I said, voice steady. But this wedding Sip's over. Gasps, forks dropping, phones raised. I looked at Natalie. You let them humiliate me. You let them humiliate my dad, and you stood there. I won sit, live my life as someone sits project. She opened her mouth, then closed it. Too late. I gave the mic back to the DJ, nodded to my dad, and we walked out, past the flowers, the string quartet, the stunned faces. On the drive home, no words. None were needed. I didn't cry, didn't yell, just felt clean, like I'd finally shrugged off a heavy coat I'd been dragging through the mud. The fallout came fast. Someone posted the video online before I even got home. By morning, it was everywhere. Groom walks out mid-reception after brutal toast. The country club dropped Helen and Richard within days. Helen's charity board voted her out, and Tom Whitaker himself saw the clip, called Richard in, didn't argue, just reassigned him to manage a supply hub in rural Alabama. I didn't gloat. I just packed up the wedding gifts, mailed them back with receipts, and returned every cent they'd spent, including the bourbon. That Sunday, me and my dad grilled burgers in the backyard like always. No speeches, just ketchup, smoke, and silence. A week later, he walked into the garage while I was changing oil on a customer's truck. He held a worn blue folder with our shop's faded logo. You want in? He asked. The shop Sip's yours if you sit you're serious. Time to pass the torch. I wiped my hands, stood, and shook his firmly. Yeah, I said. Let's do this. That handshake meant more than any ring or ceremony ever could.